There's a simple psychological phenomenon that if you understand, you can now leverage on your sales calls, meaning you're going to be able to close more deals more effortlessly by getting your customers to beg you for help, meaning you never have to hard close anyone ever again. And in this video, I'm going to explain to you what this is, and I'm going to show you how I use this on my sales calls, how my team is using it on the sales calls that we have, and how you can do the same thing to make more money. So if you watch until the end of this video, what you're going to learn is number one, what the Dunning-Kruger effect is and how we have used it to help close over 8 figures in product offers. Number two is the perfect moment to pitch and the process of producing this moment consistently every single time we have a sales call. And number three, the biggest mistake that closers make and what to do instead to make sure you never lose a sale. So before we dive into the video, just want to make a quick intro. My name is Bendik. I run 2 companies, Closing Consulting and SellHighTicket.co. And this is a done-for-you sales agency where we build and manage sales teams for 7- and 8-figure companies, mostly in the info space. And so everything I'm going to show you right now is what we're using ourselves to make really good money in high-ticket sales, and also what I use to show other people how to get into the industry and make lots of money in it. And I genuinely believe that you only need 2 skills in life to never go broke again. Number one is how to sell stuff, and number two is how to land good opportunities for you to work on. And so my goal with these videos that I'm putting on YouTube is essentially just to share all the knowledge that I wish that I had when I was sitting stuck in call centers and door-to-door sales jobs, trying to find a way to make money online. And I want to save you a little bit of trouble going through this process. All right, so let's dive in. So what we're looking at here is what's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. And we're visualizing this with a graph where you can see on the x-axis, you have on the bottom here, the level of competence you have at something. And then on the y-axis on the top, you have the level of confidence you have in your abilities to execute on that thing. And this can be anything, right? This can be your confidence and competence when it comes to, losing weight, gaining muscle, making money, starting a business, running Facebook ads, doing sales, any skill there is in life. And so what you see is that in the beginning, everyone starts here. We know nothing, and because we know nothing, we also don't have any confidence that we're going to be able to do something. But then what happens, and this is very fascinating, is that when you learn just a little bit, you move just inches on the competence scale here, you get to what we call the peak of man stupid, because you know so little that you now have what's called a broad overview over the whole situation, how to do something. Take an example. If you want to be a real estate investor, you know that what you have to do is you have to buy a property for less than the market value. You have to refurbish it so that it's worth even more, and then you got to put someone in the house to actually pay rent. Make sure that rent is higher than whatever cost you have. Now you have what's called free cash flow, and then you can also refinance the house, take out the money, and go buy the next one. And that way you kind of keep getting these free houses, so to say. And plenty of people know, that amount, maybe a little bit more, and they think that, okay, now I figured out how to do real estate investing, and they just barge at it, and that's why a lot of people lose money, right? Because they're a peak of man stupid. They have a lot of confidence, but their competence level is still so low. They really haven't learned how to do this stuff. Because buying a property for less than market value without making any mistakes and buying something that's just, completely ravaged, that is a lot more complicated than what you can make it seem. And so the next part is where we call the valley of despair. And so this is very useful for us to know, because this is the point where, on top of all this knowledge that I just explained when it comes to real estate investing, a little bit more about how to actually implement all of this. You understand more of what are the mistakes people are making, where are people losing money when it comes to real estate, what are the things that make, this hard to execute, because statistically speaking, most skills that are valuable are really hard to get, and most people don't have them. And so when you come into the valley of despair, it's because you now know so much more about how to do this thing that you understand everything you don't know. Like, what you don't know. And that's where you kind of get this feeling of, am I ever going to be able to do this, right? And then you have, as you keep actually getting more confident in something, you walk this slope of enlightenment where step by step you get better, but you also get more confident. And that's kind of where you get to sustainable level, where if you're professional at something, you know that you're good at it, and you can actually consistently produce a certain result. And so kind of the funny thing here is when it comes to peak of man stupid, one, interesting example is, if you're on an airplane and the pilot is dying, and, we can all imagine this scenario as a guy where, they come out and ask, hey, is anyone capable of landing this plane? All guys would just raise their hand because we know so little about what it takes to land a plane. We've kind of done like in simulators or in video games, and we're like, yeah, I kind of can figure out how to do this because we have that confidence level, right? But this is peak of man stupid. And so what I'm going to do now in this video is I'm going to explain how do we use this psychological, concept to actually produce the right moment to give the pitch on our sales calls where the prospects are asking you for help. And so this is kind of the antithesis of what traditional sales reps do, where unsolicited, they come knock on the door and they just give you a long ass pitch and you're not ready for it. And that's why it's just a numbers game. But what we want to do is we want to have a high closing rate. When you have meetings as a high ticket closer, let's say you have 4 or 5 meetings a day, you want to make sure that every one of those count. And, ideally you want to have 40-50% close rate on those qualified meetings. And so that's why we got to do this. And so as a closer, one thing you have to be aware of is that you're walking this fine line between two fatal extremes. One is powerlessness of, I don't have what it takes. I can never possibly, let's say you're selling a real estate investment course. You don't want the prospect to say, I cannot possibly get rich from real estate. Like, I'm not the kind of person that's going to be able to build a, real estate empire and be financially free from this and, retire young and all these things. Because if they feel like that, what can you do for them? You can't do anything. No one's going to buy and invest into a program if they feel like there's zero chance of them being able to do it. You also don't want the opposite, which is overconfidence of them saying, hey, I know everything already. Like, I kind of watched these videos. I've been reading a lot about real estate. I kind of know how to do this, because then they also don't realize where they need help. And so what you need to do is you need to walk this knife's edge between, powerlessness and overconfidence so that they have enough conviction that they're able to do something, but not so much that they think they can do it by themselves. And so this is why the valley of despair is the sweet spot to close in. Because number one, they believe they can reach their goals. They have seen other people do it. They've seen other people like them do it. They think that it is possible for me to do it, but they also understand that they cannot do it on their own. And in real estate, this is a good example, right? Because one of the companies I work with is a real estate investment company, or real estate investment course. And we have a lot of people who come to us who say, I've tried to make money investing in real estate for the past 5 years, but I'm stuck, right? And so this is a good moment for us to get into the pitch because they understand they need help. Number 3 of why the valley of despair is their sweet spot to close in. So they understand what it takes to win, but not how to do it. So they understand that, okay, I need to do these steps, in the money-making strategy in real estate in order to actually succeed. But I don't understand how to go and just execute it, which is why they're kind of sitting on their hands, not really, buying properties and doing something. And so what we want to do is we want to know how to consistently move the prospects to this point. And so it goes through the entire funnel, right? And so I'm just going to keep the funnel structure in very, big chunks here to make it a little bit easier. So when they come from ads or organic videos, they go into the VSL. This could be the VSL. This could also be long from YouTube videos. What we want to do is we want to build the authority in the brand and the coach, essentially just making them believe that, okay, whatever person I'm now going to listen to, I can trust them because I see the proof they have of, their abilities. I see the results. He shows his houses. This is not a scam. Number 2, you want to show proof that others just like you have been able to accomplish it too, right? So if I'm a 20-year-old guy who doesn't really have a higher education, I don't have a super well-paying job, I don't have rich parents, am I going to be able to succeed with real estate? Well, if this, company can now show that there's plenty of people in my shoes who have been able to do it, why shouldn't I be able to? And then number 3, you got to break down the path of how to get to these goals and why most fail. Because if people understand that, all right, between where I'm at and where I want to go, here's the road to get there. But a lot of people fuck up along that road here, and here because of these things. Now I'm aware, right? I'm getting pushed down into the valley of despair because I'm getting more aware of how difficult something is. I'm getting more confident and my confidence level starts shrinking a bit. I still know that this is possible, but I think that it's a lot more complicated than I first thought. And then on the second call, with the appointments that actually cause these leads, what we do is we want to make them, or first of all, we want to understand what's the transformation the prospect is trying to achieve. Where are you at today and where do you want to go? What's the change you want to see? Is it going from a 9 to 5 to living full-time off real estate? And this goes for obviously any kind of offer you're selling. And then we want to ask introspective questions to the prospect to get the prospect to see that they are online stupid. And so an example of this is, well, why haven't you done anything about this if you wanted to for the last few years? If you think that investing in real estate is very simple and you wanted to do it for 2 years and you have no properties, like, what's going on here? Something doesn't add up. And this is where a lot of times the prospects are fooling themselves, right? It might be someone who is overweight who keeps saying, yeah, but I used to be in good shape when I was a kid. Or when I was a teenager. It's like, I know how to do this. Yeah, but you're not a teenager. You're 30 and you're not in shape. So like, something is off, because if you know how to do it, why are you not doing it? And then the last thing I want to do is qualify the prospect, pre-frame them, and book them in and confirm the appointment. So essentially here, we're just kind of building on the momentum that happened through the marketing of them getting educated, and kind of everything starts to click a little bit of what it actually takes to be able to solve the problem that they have that's holding them back from reaching their goal. And then getting them to realize that they need some help. Something needs to change. And so on a closing call, here's what's happening. So step one is keep kind of doing a little bit of what the seller did, which is ask questions to define the current and desired situation, revealing the gap or the problem, right? This is always important. We need to know, if you go to the doctor, he needs to know where does it hurt. He can't start prescribing you medication before he knows what the problem is. And it's the same thing when we're doing sales. Because at the end of the day, what we want to do is we want to help the prospect help themselves, right? We want to help them make decisions that's going to fix their problems. It's going to make their life better, right? We're not just trying to sell anything to anyone. We're trying to be accurate in describing, solutions. And so we need to know what's the problem. Second step is we want to make the prospect admit that they have a problem that they need to solve. Because one thing is that we know what the problem is, but it's like if you're an alcoholic. If you want to not be an alcoholic, you have to say, I'm an alcoholic. Because if you say that, I have a complicated relationship with alcohol, or, I like to enjoy a drink sometimes, and you know all the consequences of your drinking, but you don't admit that it's a problem, it's never going to go away. Which is why everyone who are successful in quitting drinking or smoking or anything, they first have to say, you know what? I see the consequences. I admit to having a problem. Step 3 is making them face their problem by acting like a mirror that they cannot look away from, right? So once they see, I have a problem, we want to make them face the consequences of that. Because as you can see in this meme here, a lot of people are walking around, this is a very visual example, right? Of a lot of people are walking around thinking that their situation is better than what it actually is. You think that my arms are kind of big, I'm muscular or whatever, but you're actually kind of chubby. Like, you have a high body fat percentage. Or when it comes to real estate, like I said, one of the most important things if you want to build a rental portfolio is you need to have good cash flow. You need to have a yield that's high enough that you're making more money than the expenses you have, which is pretty basic. But then we're also talking to people who say, I think things are going pretty well in real estate. We dig a little bit deeper, and then we realize that, you know what? They're actually losing money on some of the properties. But in their head, they're like, yeah, that's fine because over time I'm going to make money. And it's the same reason why you see someone who are out of shape going around thinking they are in shape. And so when I say you got to be a mirror they can't look away from, if you're overweight, you probably don't spend that much time looking in the mirror. But if you're in really good shape, you probably look in the mirror all the time. But what if every person who's overweight had a mirror in front of them? Like, no matter where they go, no matter where they look, no matter how they sit, what angle, you always see yourself from a third person perspective. Which is why, like, when you see a photo of yourself sitting at the beach, you're like, oh, my stomach doesn't look good. Then you're starting to realize that, okay, I'm actually more out of shape than what I thought it was. And this is what we want to do, figuratively with the prospects. And we do that by asking questions. So when someone says, I think my results are good, but, per definition, they're not good compared to what their goal is, and then we start mirroring it back to them. You think your results are good? But help me understand, if you want to be financially free from real estate, how are you going to be able to quit your job if your properties don't cash flow profit? How are you supposed to, what are you supposed to live off? Where's that money going to come from? Because is your goal to retire when you're 70 or when you're 35? And if it is to retire when you're 35, how are you going there right now? You're not. The results you have, are they actually going to take you there? And so this is when the prospect starts facing the consequences of their actions, and they can't lie to themselves. They can't pretend like things are better than what it actually is. And so keep this visual in mind of being a mirror. And then step 4 is you got to challenge the prospect on their beliefs and their perspectives on the problem, so they can't keep lying to themselves. And so again, when it comes to real estate, if they say, yeah, I think my properties, these cases, they're pretty good. Like, they're fine. Okay, we got to challenge them on that. What do you believe it's fine? What do you actually need to believe in order to be able to make the kind of investments you need to reach your goal? We got to challenge them on this. And number 5, get them to admit to why they need help solving this problem. So again, we know that there is a problem, they've admitted to it, we're making them face the consequences of it, they can't look away, and now they're like, I need to make a change, and I actually need help to make a change, and here's the kind of help I need. And so, essentially what you want to do, and I keep kind of having this quote in the back of my head when I do sales calls, is ask the prospect the tough, introspecting questions that they are avoiding, leading them to looking in the mirror and realizing they need to make a change. That is exactly what you want to do. And the key here is the questions they are avoiding. Because just like you avoid looking in the mirror if you're overweight, what are the questions that are kind of rough to think about, but you have to consider them in order to actually get the results you want? What are those questions? What are those hard-hitting questions that they suck to face, but what comes out of it is you get a reality check, and now you can actually get the results you want. And so as the prospects now are trying to excuse the results or give you make-believe reasons that things will change of, yeah, but I think now I got it, or it's going to be different this time, you got to keep challenging them. And you got to keep challenging them. Don't give up until one out of 2 things happen. Either they say, I don't know how to do this at all, like I will never be able to get these results on my own, or I think I could figure it out, but it would take way too long to do this on my own. An example of this is, let's say you want to lose weight. Someone saying, I have no clue how to lose weight whatsoever, or I could probably figure it out and, find a way to get in the shape I want. But the thing is, it's, maybe it's October, by the summer, I want to be super comfortable because we're going to, Europe, we're going to France with the family, I want to go on the beach, whatever. Okay, but then you don't have time to just figure this out over the next 2 years. You need results now. And that's what you want, them to admit that they can't do it at all, or not within the time frame that they want to. Because when you do, they are now ready for your pitch. They're looking to you for a solution. They're saying, okay, I have a problem, I don't know how to solve it, but I need to find a solution. Can you solve it? Can you help me solve it? And then they start asking you. And so when the prospect feels heard, they feel understood, and they understand themselves, then they're ready to actually look for something external. And again, this is why for an outbound salesperson, a door-to-door salesperson, it's so hard for them to close on a higher percentage because they're just talking at people. They're not listening to, what they're thinking about and what's going on in their life, because, they're not in a frame of conversation to do that. And then, a lot of people are like, yeah, but I don't need this. But here what we've done is the complete opposite. It's the prospect coming to us saying, I need your help solving this problem because I can't do it on my own. And isn't that the absolute best situation to actually come in with your pitch? And so you have a prospect here in the valley of despair, because again, they have enough of an understanding of whatever, problem it is you're trying to help them solve to know that this is possible, but they know the what to do, they don't know how to do it, right? But here's the thing. A lot of people make a mistake here, which is confusing closing and coaching. And so you want to give them all the answers because it makes the prospect feel like they're walking the slope of enlightenment, but instead they are walking right up the peak of man stupid. And so they start out in the valley of despair, and if they're like, okay, so what do I do? You're like, okay, cool, here's what you do. You put on the coaching hat, and then you start talking. You got to do this, you got to do that, and here's how you solve it, but be careful of these things, do this instead. Now the prospect is going to start feeling like, okay, that actually makes sense. And this is starting to answer my questions. Because you opened a lot of loops, a lot of open loops in their mind, and now you're kind of closing them. And so the prospect feels so confident that, hey, there's no open loops anymore. I kind of got all the answers I need. Let me now go back and kind of try and figure this out on my own. So they start looking at it as a coaching call because you're treating it like it. And this is going to kill the sale always, because no one is going to spend thousands of dollars buying something if they think they can do it on their own. Like, it wouldn't make any sense. And so instead, what you need to do, you got to show them what needs to be done, not how to do it. Like, for example, you need a workout plan, you need a nutrition plan, you need to know what exactly you need to buy in the grocery store, you need to track, your metrics, you need to actually analyze the data and make changes over time. That alone is going to make them feel like, okay, that makes sense, but what do I do? How do I do that? What food should I choose? What kind of workout plan should I go on? Like, there's all these open loops. And that is when they're still looking for help. Instead, if you say, hey, here's how you need to eat, here's how you need to train, do this, do that, there's nothing left for them to try and figure out. And so just remember that the goal is to help them reach their long-term goals, not relieve the immediate pain they feel caused by the problem they face. And so the visual here is, if someone has a wound, you got to clean the wound. You got to do something that's painful now because it's going to help in the long term, not just patch it up and hope it's going to go fine, because you're definitely going to have some problems down the road. And getting them into the valley of despair is the best way to truly help them. Again, because they believe they can reach their goals, they understand they can't do it on their own, and they understand what it takes to win, but not how to do it, which means they buy into how you can help them overcome obstacles to finally reach the goal that they have so long dreamed of reaching. And so this is how you're going to be able to close the prospects without ever needing to convince them, because you're persuading. It's coming from within them, it's not external, right? Because convincing is someone internally doesn't feel like doing something, but you add external pressure. Here, we're not doing that. All we want to do is, add fuel to the fire of the internal pressure. Almost like, hey, I have no horse in the race here. I have no agenda. I'm just asking some tough questions that it seems like you're ignoring. And then from those questions, if you see that this is actually someone we can help, and they feel like they need help and they can't reach these goals on their own, again, we're not manipulating them. We're not telling them what to say. We're just, discovering what they truly feel. When you unpack everything, they're going to come to you, and they're going to come to you for help. And this means money. This is how you close deals effortlessly, consistently. And again, it just feels so much better because you're helping people. You're not making someone buy, you're helping someone understand what it takes for them to solve the problem. And like I said in the intro, I genuinely believe that you only need to master 2 skills in order to never go broke again. And it's number 1, how to sell high ticket, and number 2, how to land the right kind of opportunities to sell for. And so if you thought that this video was useful and interesting, and maybe you want to get into high ticket sales, maybe you're already in high ticket sales but you're looking for a better opportunity, then check out some of the other videos on my channel, because what I see a lot out there is people who do sales training, not that many people who actually try and help you land better offers. And so that's what I want to do. Again, just give you the information that I wish I had when I got into this industry, which would have saved me a lot of trouble. All right, that's it. So subscribe and check out some of the other videos, and I'll see you there.